that's you standing there, and we have a little scene of kind of a doorway, and as we have 3 items here, as I mouse over, they show kind of what that action is. And here's where I would remind you that prototypes are quick and dirty. It's all very placeholder graphics. We're not focusing on the kind of the beauty of the content. We're focusing on the learner experience. And again, the decisions we're making, how we display feedback, etc. So basically, the learner can take action by clicking on one of these items. Let's say they just come in and enter the ante room. We get some feedback saying, exit the ante room without finishing all tasks. So really, that's some generic placeholder feedback, just telling us kind of what this feedback should be about. And then we have some sample feedback. You didn't properly follow the procedure, and your coworker winds up sick in the hospital. So a real-world consequence of taking the inappropriate actions. So I continue, and that just restarts the exercise here. Now I need to leave the lab. Okay, so I don't want to just do that one. I know that wasn't the right option. So okay, let me come in, and I'll use the Hudson pump sprayer. Now, again, quick and dirty. So I'm going to click on the parts that I want to spray down, and I finish the step. And now let's use the biohazard disposal bin, and I'll dispose of my glove. I'll just dispose of everything. And now, as I finish those items, they're no longer available for me to do again. So now my only option left is to enter the ante room. In this case, now I get feedback saying out of major order. Again, placeholder feedback, kind of telling me what would be here, and some sample feedback. You got bacteria all over the Hudson pump. Everyone in the lab gets sick. Now here, I want to take just a moment to point out this feedback. You got bacteria all over the Hudson pump. Everyone in the lab gets sick. So this is really a clue to the learner that doing the Hudson pump first wasn't the right option, and this also gives me clues to kind of what would be the correct action. This feedback empowers the learner to figure it out for themselves, to have that aha moment that they figure it out. Aha, I don't want to use the Hudson pump sprayer first. I want to dispose of something first. And so now we can come in here and say, okay, well, what do we want to dispose of? And in this case, the correct answer is the outer pair of gloves. So we dispose of only our outer pair of gloves. Again, that option becomes not available. Now I come in and do the second option, and here I need to choose the spray down procedure.
Because there's a certain order you have to spray down, right?
That's exactly right. So,
yeah.
And we could actually, for sake of time here, I won't go through this in the wrong order. I'll do this in the correct order. But if we went through this in the wrong order now, we'd get some feedback saying, correct major order, incorrect sub-step order. So now some feedback for having done this out of order. So we spray down in that order. And you'll notice that as I click on the hotspot, it makes the hotspot go away and shows me the order in which I clicked on that hotspot. So it replaces the hotspot with a little number. So I finish that step. Again, those are not available. Now I enter the ante room. And here I get some feedback saying you leave the lab and enter the ante room. This would be another scene, somewhat like the last one. Hope you enjoyed the prototype. So the feedback here is, the success feedback isn't even really so much success feedback, but it's just we get on to the next step of the exercise. So it almost follows from video game theory where success is not necessarily bells and whistles going off. Success is just we got to the next level, and so we take that same approach here. And this is the prototype. This is all it is, but it's great because it allows us to have that artifact to now structure the conversation around. So this would be representative of our first iteration of the prototype, and we'd now come back in and say, how would we revise this? Are we satisfied with this? What would we like to change? And if we want to come back and look at our principles, so is the scenario realistic? Yes, it is. Are we making meaningful decisions? Yes, it is. Is it challenging? Yes, it is. Is the feedback meaningful? Again, I'd say yes, it is. And I even say that it kind of reflects the real-world feedback. Now, if we were to look at how we might edit this exercise for revision 2, say we're in the review process, well, maybe maybe the feedback comes out, well, yeah, this is nice, but in the real world, everybody leaves the lab in a hurry because, or it sometimes happens, people make mistakes when they leave the lab in a hurry. So maybe one of the ways we want to change this would be to come up here and add a timer to the exercise so that you have now 3 minutes to leave the lab. 3 minutes to leave the lab, and then maybe also we wanted to add like distractor answers. So instead of just having these 3 answers, we also wanted to have like a little calendar on the wall up here where someone can come view the calendar as a sign out sheet or something that really isn't a necessary step. Maybe we have a red herring like that to increase the complexity, and then that wouldn't necessarily break our process, but if we had an option in here to click on that, maybe we want every option to subtract time from our clock. So I would come in here and say that when we click on one of these options, we want to go to our timer and subtract 20 seconds from our timer, so that now either clicking on our pump or on our biohazard thing would now come in, and so now we need to leave the lab. We've got 3 minutes, to make the meeting in the next building over or whatnot. And as we take actions, those actions cost our clock. So maybe that's one of the ways we could make this even more realistic, is to add red herrings. Every action we take counts against the clock, and we build that clock so that it's just enough time that we can go kind of through the right process and get everything right, but we wouldn't have time to kind of to get any of the red, just select any of the red herrings. That would be an example of how we might change this in a revision conversation, and then go through another iterative cycle.
This has been, I hope people seeing this agree that this is a great way to show how much more powerful an interactive scenario is than the classic drag and drop, for example. And even in just the prototype form with the super simple graphics, it was compelling, it was interesting, it was challenging. And so I'd recommend everybody try to make time in the schedule for prototyping. And if you're curious about SmartBuilder and how it works, please stop by their website. I'll have the link in the blog. And Leif, do you have anything else to say?
Sure. I'll leave with this thought, and it is that really, if you want your e-learning to be successful, our goal is to affect performance change, and that's where allowing someone to practice doing what it is you want them to do is just such a powerful way of doing that. And by building a prototype, you're actually saving time. If quality is if quality and kind of performance change is the output that you're looking for, this is actually going to save you a lot of time, because really we start with the end in mind. We build the exercise that if we know they can pass this exercise, then they're going to be successful. Then we put our effort into this. We rapid prototype something, and then everything else kind of falls around that. And I know that your action mapping process really puts emphasis on what do you want someone to do. Well, spending time getting these exercises right at the beginning, you'll find that when you don't end up building something real big and then come back and say, well, this just isn't doing what we want it to do. By putting an emphasis on prototyping, you really guarantee that when you get your end product, you know exactly what you're going to be getting. It'll be successful, and ultimately that you'll be happy with your outcome because you took the time to do the prototyping. So I can't stress enough how many people I've seen be successful because they take a prototyping approach, and you kind of successively take little steps closer to getting it right, versus trying to do it via a storyboard or some more static medium. So
Yeah.
I would reinforce what you said, Cathy. And thank you for the opportunity, Cathy. This is fun. So thank you for taking the time.
Well, thanks for taking the time too, and it was. I hope it was really useful for the blog readers and Blueprint users. And again, thank you.
You're welcome.